Yeah, g'day YouTubers, Tinker O'Toole again with another video. Today we're going to talk about normal felling axe, a splitting axe and splitting wedges, a subject that probably don't see around too much, so we'll go into that. So first of all, we'll talk about a cutting axe. So here we've got a cyclone cutting axe here. It's approximately just over 33 inches in length. The metal head weighs 2 kilo. The overall weight is about 2.9 kilos. So that's a nice size. Now the other thing when we talk about a normal cutting axe is there's a lot of angles built into an axe. Some angles that you don't realise. You've got in the cheeks. For those that are not too familiar with what the cheeks are, this is the cheeks here. This is concave, so it's if you to sit a straight edge on it, and we'll do that, you'll find out that it doesn't sit flat. Just get it nice and level. There it is there. And also, if you do it that way, you'll see that it's doesn't sit flat. Oh, actually, I'll try and do it that way. You'll see there's a gap at either end. So that is a normal profile of an axe. Now what's very important about an axe is the shape. Now that's a 15-degree angle. Now 15-degree angle at the edge of the axe, we have what you refer to as a micro bevel. It's probably a couple of millimeters on that. I think you can just see it there. Now that angle would be out probably that would be 30-degree angle on the micro bevel. If you had a 15-degree angle right on the edge, you'll blunten the axe very, very quickly. So you put a micro bevel on it. A micro bevel can be anywhere, or a lot of times they refer to it as a secondary bevel. So the primary bevel is your 15 degrees, your secondary bevel is your edge, your cutting edge. So a normal cutting axe, the primary angle will be anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees. 15 degrees, that axe there is about the same profile as a racing axe. A racing axe is about 15 degrees, roughly between 15 and 18. So look, a good cutting axe will be anywhere from that, 15 to 20 degrees. The secondary edge will be anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees. And it depends on the secondary edge, which is, as I said, we refer to that as a micro bevel. That could be anywhere from 25 to 30 degrees. So that's a normal axe, and they work quite well, and they've been doing them for thousands of years. So it's not like they've just invented it over the last 50 years. Thousands and thousands of years have gone into axes and how they work. Now the other thing that's interesting is a splitting axe, that's the est wing here. Totally different shape and a lot heavier. So this has got a total weight of almost 3 kilos. The est wing's got a total weight of almost 4 kilograms. So the actual metal head weighs about 2.7 kg. But if you look at the profile on the est wing, you'll notice that it really gets out there on a look at the profile. So would you believe that the profile, the secondary beveled edge here is about 30 degrees included. Now you may come across that, it'll say 30 degrees included. What that means is 15 degrees either side, so it's just a total of 30 degrees. And this angle here just goes out so much, you know. You go and look at it there, you know. So you look at it probably 45 degrees right on the edge there. So it just keeps changing, and that's the whole idea why a splitting axe works so well. Now the other thing is, a lot of the times, a lot of splitting axes have over strike protection. They have a rubber on it, and that's why you've got this large hook on here. So if you come down level like that, you'll see roughly it comes down about 2 inches. Whole idea that if you slightly miss, instead of hitting here you may hit the edge, and that's the reason why you've got this large part on here. Now this is really sharp. So for a splitting axe, it's fairly sharp. So that's your splitting axe. Now the splitting axe, generally speaking, you'll see them come in different angles. And as I said, they can go anywhere up to 45 degrees. It just depends. Yeah, they might only be 30 degrees on that large primary bevel. So that's your splitting axe. Now we'll talk about splitting wedges. Now, one of the best angles to penetrate wood would be about 15 degrees. 15 degrees penetrates wood really good, end grained, as well as across the grain when we're going to cut into a tree or a log at a 45 degree angle across the grain. 15 degrees is a great angle. Problem is, because it's such a sharp edge, it'll blunt very quickly, and that's why you need a secondary edge on there so that it doesn't blunt as quick. Now, the other thing is, you can have a secondary edge a little bit more pointier if you're doing soft wood. But here in Australia, we've got eucalypts, very hard wood, so we need a good secondary angle of around 30 degrees. Included angle, which is 15 degrees either side. Okay, back with the splitting wedges. So I've got various splitting wedges there, as you can see. A lot of them are useless. A good example is this one's made by Cyclone, and it's got splitting wedge. Have a look at that. That's a 45 degree secondary angle. Absolutely useless for splitting timber. I even tried to modify this one. Still useless. Why is it useless? Look, it may be okay in soft timber, but it's certainly not going to split wood in hardwood. It'll bounce off, and that was the problem. So you need something around your 15 degree mark. And I've got a few of the really old splitting wedges. Probably who knows how old these are. They look a little bit rough. The best one I've got is this one here. And have a look at the angle. That's your 15 degree angle. Comes to a fairly sharp point. Won't cut yourself on it, but it comes to a reasonably sharp point, as you can see. Works quite well. This one here, again, comes to a reasonably sharp point. Works quite well. This one here I picked up at a market. It's much more than 15 degrees. It doesn't work as good. It really needs to be put into a crack. When I say a crack, splitting wedges work really good if there's a little crack in the timber. You'll need a fairly big crack in the timber to use this. So I wouldn't look at that angle, 45 degrees. That's going to bounce off the timber. And I'll give you a demonstration how pathetic they are. And then you can really understand why a large angle is not very good for an axe to go in the timber. So, you know, personally, I'd rather about a 25 degree angle, a secondary angle on an axe, even less. But the problem is, the sharper the angle, or the more pointy the angle, or the more aggressive the angle, or the less degree of the angle, it'll blunt much quicker. So it's a little bit of a compromise. So as I said, if you're in a region where you've got hardwood like where we have, you're probably going to have to stick to a 30 degree included angle. So yeah, not a lot there. But as you can see, if we were to use a protractor and measure this angle here, you'll find out that that angle there is a, as I said, that's a 15 degree angle included. So very steep, so it's only 7.5 degrees aside. Okay, so where does a splitting wedge work really good? Works in the cracks of timber. So let's just say you've got a big, huge log, and we've got one over there. I'm not going to demonstrate on it because that's my chopping block. It's about 2 foot in diameter. So what we will do, we'll take the camera over to the other side and we'll set up and we'll just show you a few of the splitting wedges, and especially these ones, how they really don't work that well. But what they're actually good for, where it says splitting wedge, I would say they're great for felling wedges. So in other words, you've got a large tree and you're going to drop it. You cut, by the time you get 3/4 of the way through it, you want to stop, get your wedges, get your sledgehammer, belt them in at about a 60-degree angle either side, and you can still get your chainsaw in, and they really do work good, and you can drop the tree in the direction that you want by using felling wedges. You will see some of the ones by Stihl. Some are made out of aluminium and the worst ones are made out of plastic. Well, I can tell you one thing. You start using this, this is 3.5 kilo sledgehammer. So this is about a 7 over 8 pound sledgehammer. This is going to smash those plastic wedges. So those plastic wedges are useless. They're not very good, and they're certainly not going to stand up to the punishment of a fairly heavy sledgehammer. So, okay, so what we'll do, we'll go on to the demonstration of how these splitting wedges work. Okay, so what we got here is a solid brass mash hammer. Probably weighs almost 2 kilos total weight, so very heavy. So what we're going to do is show you how this so-called splitting wedge does not work. You can hit that all day. There's a crack. Just does not work. Absolutely useless. See if we can zoom in and you might be able to see the dints that it made. That's all it's going to do, make dints like that. It's not going to split, even though it's called a splitting wedge. So yeah, it really doesn't work that good. Not very happy with those. Now, as I said, this is my best one, and that's a 15-degree edge. Got that at a market, Sunday market. So what I'm going to do is put that in the crack. There you go. Yeah, okay, so that was just a little tiny log. So this log that we've got here would be almost 600 mils in diameter. And that's where I use the splitting wedges, not in the small stuff. I only done the demonstration on the small one to show you how it works in a crack. But as you can see, if you've got very, very hard wood, it can be very difficult using a splitting axe, and sometimes you could be hitting it 20, 30 times and not get anywhere. Now, let's just say that I had this and I wanted to split this. If you look closely, you can see there's a crack there. There's a little cracks all over the place. So you've got to find the largest crack and put your splitting wedge in that. And as I've shown you before, if you ever want to use splitting wedges, try and get one. It's about 15 degrees included angle. Yeah, so that's 7.5 degrees either side. Very difficult to buy them. I haven't found anywhere that sells them except those cyclone ones, which work okay if you've got a large crack, but if you've certainly got a small crack, they're not going to work at all. So yeah, okay, so just to recap, a normal cutting axe used to cut down a tree is used across the grain. It's better if it's around 15 degrees on the primary angle. The secondary angle is better if it's anywhere from about 20 to 30 degrees. That'll keep the edge nice and sharp longer. In softer timber, you can change that secondary angle and have it a little bit more aggressive. Using a splitting wedge is used mainly in larger logs, because if you use a splitting axe or maul, as they're sometimes called, they're good up to timber that's at least 1.5 feet. But if you've got a fairly large log that's, you know, almost 2 foot in diameter, fairly hard timber, solid, you'll need to have cracks in it to use a splitting wedge. If you don't have a crack in it and you still want to have a go at it, try and use your, hopefully you've got a heavy splitting axe or maul. Maybe you can hit it near the edge a little bit and put a crack in it. If you can do that, then you could put the wedge in there, because sometimes you may have to repeatedly hit a large log, and sometimes it just feels like that the splitting axe is just bouncing off, especially on some of the hard eucalypt timber that we have here in Australia. If you're doing pine, well, that's just a joke. That's just so easy. But yeah. But one thing about pine, I don't look at pine as being a good wood because it burns so fast and so quick. One thing about the eucalypt wood is that you can put a decent sized log in and it will sort of burn overnight, and you'll be left with some coals in the morning. That's the best part about the hardwood. But the worst part about the hardwood is if you're doing some splitting with a splitting axe, or if you're cutting. It's not as bad when it's green, but certainly when it dries out, it's much harder to deal with. So hopefully that information that I showed you may help. When I was looking for splitting wedges, I couldn't find any except for those cyclone ones. As I says, you won't sink them into hardwood very good unless there's large cracks, and that's why I looked around one of the Sunday markets until I found a 15-degree one, which goes in much, much easier. Anyway, look, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up, and comments are always welcome. Bye for now.